Hello, aloha. Welcome to another episode of Touchful Podcast, dear human. I feel that this will be an intense one for me to record. I want to talk about what education system did to me, and maybe to you also. I want to take myself and you with me on a journey back to my school years and how the school and how the education system installed some patterns in me that were then active in my life for most of my life, and still some of them are still active right now. And I feel that now I'm basically becoming more and more aware of what I was made to believe about myself and about the world and about other people, what I was made to believe at school when I was 7, 8, 11, 15, and how it shaped my whole life, and how simply becoming more and more aware of it is like a healing process for me. And there are a couple of reasons why I want to bring this topic today. First of all, because it is the topic that emerged for me in today's meditation. So I start every day with meditating and different things come up, and today it was such a journey through my school years and all the conditioning that I received there. And somehow it is the topic that I feel it's quite present in my field recently. I had quite a deep talk about it with my dear companion just the other week, and somehow I am becoming so much more, like I said, I'm becoming so much more of these patterns of behavior and patterns of thinking that were almost like installed in me at school, and that are simply not true, and that are simply so harmful for me and not serving me. Another reason why I want to bring this topic is because I really wholeheartedly believe that I am not the only one, that you probably as well went to school. And even if we are from different countries, then I feel that in most Western countries, school operate in quite a similar way. So I was born and I grew up in Poland, where we have a certain type of school system. And if you are in a different country, then maybe your education system works a little bit differently. But I somehow feel that it is, maybe not always, but it is often based on similar ideas and similar premises. And I also am very aware of the fact that it is changing now, that it was different 20 or 25 years ago when I was at school, that we are definitely taking some steps forward in terms of being aware how important school is, and how it shapes children. So I don't want this episode to be like a rant at school or at teachers. Absolutely not. I don't want it even to be like a rant on a system or education system or any other system. I just want to share my story, something that emerged for me today, and maybe you will see a little bit of you in my story, and maybe we will go on a little bit of a healing journey together. Because this is also my other intention, that I believe that simply by talking about things, we heal them. I remember that I did some podcast episode about it in a previous season, that simply by putting things on a table, putting our fears, our difficult experiences on a table and talking about them, not necessarily in a podcast, but just talking about them maybe with somebody who you trust. That is extremely healing. And for me, podcasting is my healing experience and it is my spiritual experience. So I want to use this opportunity to take myself on this healing journey and, like I said, take you with me. Hopefully, you will find some healing for you there as well. And finally, I just realized it now that another reason why I'm so ignited by this topic is that I am a teacher myself. I not in a school system, but I am a teacher. I am a teacher of Hawaiian healing called Lomi Lomi. I do trainings, I do individual trainings, I do group trainings, I do mentorings. So I am a teacher, and I feel that healing my school stories and taking myself on that journey simply makes me a better teacher. It makes me a better teacher to my students. That's what I want to believe in. Okay, so let's go. I'm gonna probably breathe a lot through this episode because, like I said, I feel that this topic is intense for me. I'm gonna drink a lot of water and let's go. I want to start at the start. So, when I was little, I was this naturally very curious child. And it's nothing unusual. I really firmly believe that this is the only common trait of all children, is that they are curious. Curious of different things and curious in different ways. But we have this inner drive as children of being curious of life. So I was this curious child, and I was also very like a highly emotional child, like very sensitive child, and also very introspective child. So this is something that I don't remember, but I have a 9-year-old sister, and she would tell me these stories that when I was little, I would come to her and I would ask her a question, like, sometimes children ask these deeply philosophical questions. So I would ask her about something, about life or about how things work, and she would give me an answer the best that she could, and I would just say, okay. And then she says that I would very often come back to her like a week after or 2 weeks after, kind of like wanting to continue on that topic as if our conversation was just 5 minutes ago, because I needed the time to process what I heard. And I feel that this deep need of introspection, that it has been always a part of my life. I feel that I am this deeply introspective adult. I spend a lot of time on my own, contemplating, meditating, journaling, taking myself on these deep inner journeys. And it's just was always like this since I was a child. So I was deeply curious, very sensitive, introspective. One of the things that I was curious about were these things called letters, which I couldn't understand. So I was always nagging my mom to read all the signs for me, like when we were in a store or just anywhere where I could see letters. I would always ask my mom to read this for me. So I learned to read very fast because I wanted to read the books on my own, the books that my mom would read for me before bedtime or at bedtime. So I was maybe like 3 or 4 when I started to learn to read, and then I just became a bookworm. This curious, introspective, sensitive bookworm I was when I went to school at the age of 7. And I had this curiosity. I had this easiness of learning things. So I naturally, very quickly became very good at being a student. I just quickly became a very good student. And I remember when I take myself back on the journey, I remember that it started very naturally for me. So I would know things, I would understand things. I liked reading, I liked math, I liked geography a lot. I was just curious about the world, so I would read all kinds of things. So I would know all kinds of things. So when teacher would ask something, I would just naturally raise my hand, or I would just share what I know. And that was like an outer expression of myself, of my curiosity, of me being this curious little cute thing. I smile to myself now when I remember this cute little thing who just wanted to read all the books in the library. So it was like a natural drive. But then I started to see that it has effect on people. So I would get a praise from a teacher, or I would get a good grade, I would get a compliment, I would be put as an example to other children. And that was this moment when I started to be conditioned into believing that I can earn attention, that I can get attention, that I can get praise, that I can ultimately get love by being a good student, by being the best. And again, I really believe that there's nothing unusual about my story, that maybe some of you who listen to this right now, maybe you can relate. Or maybe not, maybe your school story was completely different. But then I invite you to take yourself on a memory journey into first days, months, or first year at school, and what you were made to believe about yourself. What did the school and the teachers and other children, what did they make you believe about yourself? Because for me, one of the things is that I was made believe that the easiest way to get love, to get attention, was to be the best. As simple as that. And it was easy for me to be the best. It was easy for me to learn. It was easy for me to memorize things. I was thinking fast. I have a big brain. I am super intelligent. So that was super easy. And that took me on that path of conditioning myself to believe that I am loved when I am the best. And just to make things clear, I am not blaming my teachers for any of this, or my parents. Like my parents, for example, they were never demanding when it comes to grades, or they would never criticize me if I got a lower grade. They were just the sweetest and best parents to the schoolgirl that I was. But of course, they were very proud of me, naturally, I think. They were very proud of me that I was this best student, always getting the best grades. So even though they didn't put any kind of pressure on me, they didn't tell me like, oh, you need to have the best grades, you need to be the best, you need to have the good grades, oh, you got this grade and what grade did your friend get? I never got these questions from my parents. They were never like actively pushing me to be the best. But again, naturally, of course, they were proud of me for being a good student. They would often share some stories about me and being the best and winning this or winning that. They would share it at the, family dinner or something. So again, that conditioned me into believing that my parents love me because I'm the best. And now, from the perspective of an adult, of course, I know that it's not true, that my parents loved me because they loved me, because I was their daughter, because I am their daughter, and they love me. But at that time, this connection started to build up, to be wired so deeply into my whole system, into my nervous system, into my body. This connection between being the best and being loved, being appreciated, being needed. Because here's the other thing. When I was one of the best students, of course, that also showed me that it is my way to be needed, to be wanted. When I was, like 4th or 5th or 6th grade, I was, or even later when I was a teenager, I was not that kind of a girl that boys would ask out. I was this kind of a girl that boys would ask for help with maths because I was the best at it. And I would be always super happy and super grateful to be able to help somebody, to understand something, to explain something to somebody. I really liked that. And that is my alarm clock ringing. I'm gonna go and turn it off, and then I will let you know why it's ringing. Okay, I'm back. I'm not gonna cut it out. A little off topic. So the reason why my alarm clock is ringing, it's ringing every 10, 15 or 20 minutes. So I'm gonna turn off a couple of next ones as well. Otherwise they would keep ringing. And the reason for that is that I have my alarm clock set for every 10, 15 or 20 minutes. And when it rings off, I stop whatever I'm doing. I put my hand on the heart and I take a couple of breaths and I remind myself who I am deeply and truly, why I am here, what are my values, what I believe in so deeply. So actually, that was completely not planned, but okay, whatever, let's do it. I'm gonna do it with you. So I'm placing my hand on my heart right now, taking a breath and just seeing what wants to come up without planning. I am safe. It is safe to be me. It is good to be me. I want myself. I am wanted and needed exactly as I am. I am proud of myself. I am proud of the life that I create. I am proud of the relationships in my life. I'm happy and grateful for them. I'm grateful for my body. I live with open heart. I am courageous. I am vulnerable. Things that I do are important, and I do them for myself because I am important for myself. And that's what I would do every 15 minutes when my alarm rings off. Okay, where was I? Where was I down the lane? Yes, that I was this kind of a student that would be always happy to help other students to understand things. I think that was these early signs of a teacher in me, that I just liked teaching. I liked helping others, to teach others something. But again, the connection that was created then in me was this belief that I am wanted and I am needed when I am the best at something, and then somebody needs help. So fast forward to my teenage years, I feel that I was like the patterns in me were just reinforcing that I need to be the best. I want to be the best. This is my way to prove my worth through being the best, through being the best at everything. So I was basically the best at everything, even though I had some things that I liked more than the others, some subjects at school, some fields of interest that I liked more than the others, like maths or geography. Then I was simply the best at everything. And still, it kind of felt easy, but the older I became, of course, the more demanding the school program becomes. So the more difficult it became to be good at everything. And by the age of like 14, 15, I was so deeply conditioned into believing that I have to be the best at everything in order to be wanted, accepted, and loved, that there was no other option for me. I would freak out at the idea that I might get a lower grade at a test or something like this. I would freak out not because my parents would punish me for this or anything like that. Like I told you, they were the most kind and loving parents when it comes to that. I would freak out because by that time I had it internalized in me. So again, I know it from now. I know it from the point where I'm standing right now. But at that time, I didn't know that. But what it felt like is that it felt that me not being good at something would almost feel like it's life-threatening to me, because that would threaten my my need to be loved, to be accepted, to be needed, to be wanted. But like I said, it became more and more, I don't even want to say difficult. Maybe it was not difficult, because again, learning was in a way always easy for me, but it just became more and more draining. And by the age of like by my teenage years, I got that label of being the best student, being one of the top students at school. And we all get these labels as children at some point. So again, if you want to take yourself on the journey, take yourself to the time when you were 10, 12, 15, what label was on your forehead? Because my label was the A grade student. Maybe your label was that you were the bad student, the one that is not promising, the one that never gets good grades, and everybody saw you through that lens. Maybe you were the mischief. Maybe you were the pretty girl or the handsome boy. Whatever you were, most likely, I'm not gonna say it like 100% when it comes to your story, but I guess that most likely you believed in that label. And everything that was threatening that label was threatening your life on the level of nervous system. So to fast forward to university, I was super ambitious, over ambitious, definitely. I studied psychology, And I really, really liked it. And I was, of course, one of the best at my year, so I got a scholarship. And then I decided that psychology is actually not enough. Just need to prove that I can study 2 faculties at the same time. So I was on the second year of psychology when I started to study English, literature, and linguistics. And I also got a scholarship there. So I was like a full-time student on 2 faculties, and then I also had some part-time job later. And when I say it out loud right now, I feel that I just want to go and hug this 20-year-old me and tell her, girl, you don't need to prove anything to anybody. You don't need to be the best at everything. But I think that at that time, she wouldn't believe me. Because still, she believed that 20-year-old me, she believed in something that started very early at school, that I need to be the best, I need to be the best. It's enough that I just need to try a little harder, I just need to do a little more, and then I will be loved, then I will be accepted. And wow, I feel that it is still so strong in me, this feeling, because as I'm saying it right now, I feel tears coming to my eyes. This response from my body and from my nervous system, something that my body so deeply remembers, even though now at the age of 35, after years of deep inner work, I know that it's not true. Then still my body remembers that feeling that just like, just a little more, just a little more, and then I will be loved. And so I feel that what happened, oh, by the way, it started raining. We have quite a rainy day today, rainy and windy day in Arnastapi, where I live in Iceland. So if you hear some weird background noise, it might be the rain. So in a way, the way I see my life is that it was 20 years of conditioning me into believing into lies, because all of these were lies. I don't need to be the best to be loved. I don't need to do anything to be loved. It's really enough for me to just exist, and that is more than enough. But it was these 20 years of conditioning. And again, I am deeply curious. Like, I wish we could just sit by the table right now and have a real time conversation, because I'm really curious, what was your conditioning? What were your labels? Do you even resonate with what I say? Or maybe you had 20 years of conditioning yourself into believing that you are the worst, that you will never be successful, that just because you don't get good grades, that it means that you will not be successful or rich or happy in life. Maybe that was your conditioning. And then my question is, how did it shape your life? And do you still believe this to be true? Because even though I as Magdalena, as a grown-up person, as an adult who has done immense amount of work on herself, I, as Magdalena, don't believe this to be true anymore, all this conditioning that I got at school. But there is this little one in me. We can call her inner child. I also really like to call in my inner teenager, because that's a little bit different energy than the inner child. So there is this inner child in me, and the inner teenager that got deeply wounded at that time. And again, it's not about me blaming the teachers or the system or the parents. I really believe that we all come with best intentions, and we show up to our best abilities. And still, it doesn't change the fact that some deep wounding happened for me there. And I see echoes of this conditioning still in my life up to this day. And I'm 35, and I've been almost 15 years in a world of self-development and self-inquiry and therapy and contemplation and meditation and healing and everything. Almost 15 years of that. And sometimes still this conditioning from school comes up. I remember the memory of that came to me today in a meditation. That's why I remember it. Wait, I just need to sit in a little bit different way. Yeah, like this. And maybe a sip of water. I remember when I went to my first Lomi Lomi training. So again, maybe you're here for the first time and you don't even know what Lomi Lomi is. So it's something that I practice and I teach. It is a Hawaiian healing that is based around the massage, physical manipulation of the body and body work and a massage, but it's definitely more than just a massage. So I remember my first Lomi training, and the first time when I received Lomi from my teacher. So part of the training is that, of course, you observe your teacher, you do the movements, so you massage together with the teacher. But then at my training, it was also a moment when I was massaged by my teacher. And I remember, and that was the first Lomi that I ever received in my life. And I remember lying on that bench, on that massage bench, and thinking to myself, am I laying down in a good way? Do you understand that? Do you understand what I just say? I was just laying down. There was nothing I was supposed to do, just to lay down and be and allow myself to receive this beautiful healing. There was no expectation of me to remember anything or to follow my teacher's hands, movement of hands or anything like this. I was just supposed to lay down. And still, from this deep wounding and deep conditioning, I was able to be afraid of, am I lying down in a correct way? Am I not tensing my body too much? Are my arms in the correct position? And again, from the perspective of an adult me, a grown-up me, being a grown-up woman who knows her worth, I so much would love to go to that Magdalena. And it was not so long ago, it was 8 years ago, to go to that Magdalena from 8 years ago and hug her and tell her, you are doing everything just fine. You don't need to do it better. You don't need to do it in any different way. And if there is any kind of pattern that I feel coming up for me every now and then, despite all these years of work, it's exactly this kind of crippling fear of like, am I doing it in a right way? And I really believe that it comes from these school years when doing something in a right way meant that you would get a good grade, meant that you would get praise and love and appreciation and attention. And doing something in a bad way meant, at least for me, that you would get a lower grade, so that was life-threatening. So up to this day, like I said, I sometimes just catch myself on this thought like, am I doing it in a correct way? Like, even though nobody's looking at me and nobody will give me a good grade or a bad grade for that. It's just me and myself and I. But sometimes it's like, oh, maybe I should do it differently. Am I doing it in a right way? And that is always my cue. That is always my red light to stop and remind myself that I am not 7 or 8 or 12 anymore. And I don't need to do anything for grades, which were ultimately, I was not doing things for grades. I was doing things for love. So I need to remind myself that the love is here, that there is love, and it's right here. And you don't need to do anything to deserve it. Doesn't matter how well you do something, or doesn't matter how much you F up. There is a love. There is always love. It's right here. It's right here. And as I'm saying it right now, I'm putting my hand on my heart, which I very often do multiple times a day. I just almost like unconditionally, not unconditionally, almost like what is the word that I want to say? Unconsciously, almost unconsciously put my hand on the heart and remind myself that it's right here, you're right here. Another thing that happened for me throughout my school years, and again, I'm absolutely sure that it is not just my story, is that I started to rely so much on this external validation instead of internal validation. So I knew that I was good, that I knew who I was, not even that I was good. I knew who I was through the external validation, through the information from other people that I got. I knew who I was. I was a good student, I was a good girl, I was the best, I was the brainiac, I was the smart one, I was the promising one, I was the genius, I was this, I was that, I was not good at sports, I was this, I was that, I was this, I was that. All these labels, and kind of somehow the image that I get right now is that there are so many labels on me that nobody could see me. And I definitely couldn't see myself when I was 9 or 10 or 11, because I was relying on the world to tell me who I was. And that was really until very, very recently. So like I told you, the last 15 years of my life are these years of, I really need to say an F word, so if there are some little ones listening to this by accident, just cover their ears, because I really need to say this, that these last 15 years almost of my life, these years of unfucking myself from all the conditioning that I got tangled into. And that's why sometimes I call it journey back to love, journey back to myself, journey back to just that moment when you can just put your hand on your heart and feel that this is absolutely enough, that you are enough, that this world is enough, and that you are safe. You are safe because you have yourself, not because of some external conditions. You are safe because you have yourself. And that shift happened for me really only recently. I feel that it deeply landed in me within the last year, which was one of the most transformational years of my life. Last 2 years. But of course, it is the consequence of everything that I've been doing through these 15 years of unfucking myself. And I am at this point of my life right now when I have this deep inner validation in me, when I trained my body to believe, and my nervous system to believe, that it is just enough that I am, and I don't need to prove anything to anybody. Like I said in the last episode, that I don't need to even prove anything to myself. And that was like the last I don't know how to say it, like was like the last thing that stayed in me, that even after all these years of therapy and unfucking myself and meditating and healing and God knows what, I got to that point when I understood that I don't need to impress anybody to earn love, to get love. But still, it was deeply engraved in me that I need to impress myself. because I was, and still sometimes am, my hardest critic. I still sometimes hold myself to absolutely unrealistic standards. Absolutely unrealistic standards. But what happens and what matters the most is that I am aware of this. I am more and more aware of this, to the point that very often I am able to just, catch myself in the act of doing this and just have this deep conversation with myself that I don't need to prove anything to anybody, not even to myself, because life is not the school. You are not at school, Magdalena, anymore. You don't need to get good grades. You don't need to be this or that. So the last 15 years of unfucking myself were the years of taking off all the labels, all the layers of conditioning, so I was finally able to see myself under all these labels. And that moment when that happens, when I see myself truly for who I am, for what I am, these are the moments that take my breath away. Because I am bigger than any label. I am bigger than any conditioning. Even if this conditioning is still in me, some parts of it, and maybe they will always be there, but what I know is that I am bigger than any box that anybody or myself would try to put me into. And I want you to hear this about yourself as well. You are bigger. You are bigger than any label that anybody put on you, or any label that you put on yourself. You are bigger than any of your stories. You are bigger than any of your traumas. You are bigger than anything that has ever happened to you. You are bigger than any of your failures, and you are bigger than your biggest success. You are bigger than all this. We are bigger than this. These are the parts of us, maybe, or were some parts of us, or maybe some of these stories, maybe some of your traumas, some of your stories, some of your conditioning, maybe it still shows up in your life. And to some extent, maybe it guides your choices, your behaviors, your mental state or your physical state. It might be so, it might be like this, and maybe it will be with you till your last day. Some parts of your trauma, some parts of your conditioning. Maybe, but you are bigger. And this is my mantra. And I feel like crying again. Oh, that's good. That means that there is deep truth in this. Tears are always my best companions of truth. I wanted to say something and I forgot. I'm gonna take a sip of water then. Yeah. So what I feel is like I feel that I will start to wrap up all this. That simply the message that I'm trying to convey is that what helped me was to become more and more aware of these patterns of behavior, of these beliefs that were installed in me at school around that age, around that time, just to simply be aware of that. But awareness is not enough. And it's one of the first times I say it out loud. I would usually be that person who would say it's enough if you become aware of something, and then it's like 90% of success. And now I'm actually gonna take it a little bit further. So the first step is awareness of these patterns. In my case, the pattern of like I need to be the best to deserve love. So the first step is awareness. So these patterns are no longer guiding your behavior. But then what really makes a difference, what made a difference for me, is to embody it. And yeah, I know that it doesn't mean much, so I'm gonna elaborate what I mean by that. To go against the pattern. So that these patterns that I see in me, for example, are this perfectionism. I need to be the best. If I just will be able to make this perfect, then I will get all the love that I want. That was, that is this engraved thinking in me. Of course, I logically know that it doesn't work like this, but that's the thing with these patterns, they're absolutely illogical. So the perfectionism in me, or the procrastinator in me, which also comes from this, that I'm just gonna postpone things because I feel that it's too much, that it's too big, that it's too complicated, and that I will fail at this. There is something in my life that I started to learn right now, something completely new for me, and I feel the procrastinator in me, this feeling of like, maybe I will just do it tomorrow, but not today, because I feel that the moment I open all these tabs and I look at all these numbers and all these things, that I feel that I don't understand it, and that immediately throws me into the feeling of, okay, I'm stupid, I'm not the best, I don't understand it, my life is threatened. Another pattern of me is people pleasing. I feel that this one is like the least active in me, but I definitely sometimes see it. So first I identified, and I keep identifying these patterns of behaviors, these trauma responses in me. And then the moment the pattern emerges, so I become aware of it. That's the first step. I become aware of it. And then what I actively need to do is to walk in the opposite direction of the pattern. So even like today with recording this episode, I had this moment when my alarm clock went off. I had this moment when I mixed the words and I said the wrong word. And then I was like, well, no, that's not the word. What was the word? And I know that maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, I would definitely edit that out to make this perfect, to make this beautiful. And today I deliberately decided to keep all my fuck-ups in this podcast and release it like this, that it's not perfect. And that is me walking in the opposite direction of the pattern. Another pattern that I walked in the opposite direction of is my procrastinating. So what happened this morning for me in the meditation is that I deeply touched this topic of that I'm sharing right now, school, education, and what it did to me. And I started to have these deep insights. And then this thought emerged like, Magdalena, you should really make a podcast about it. Just talk about it out loud. And then I came out of meditation and I started just taking a couple of notes. And then I had this pattern in me emerging of a procrastinator, of an overwhelm. And I was like, okay, maybe I will just record it some other time, because I feel that it's like too much. I want to take a lot of notes. I want to make it perfect, the perfectionist. And maybe I will just do it some other time. Maybe I am actually a little bit hungry. Maybe I will eat something now, or maybe I will need some tea, or maybe I will go for a walk, or maybe I will start cleaning the house. Maybe this, maybe that, just not to do what my heart really wanted to do, because my heart and my soul really wanted to sit and have this conversation with myself and record it. And I saw this so clearly in me, like so clearly, that it is my pattern of avoidance, of trying to avoid potential failure, because a potential failure to little me felt life-threatening. I identified that pattern today, and I walked in the opposite direction. So I walked in the direction of, I'm recording this right now. Without much thinking, just put the mic in front of me, open my program for recording, take a couple of breaths, read my mantra that I have here in front of me on my computer, and my mantra is that I always find right words. This is the mantra that I repeat myself often. Take a couple of breaths and then just start recording. And I'm so glad that I did. Because every time we walk in the opposite direction of the pattern, we heal the pattern. Or that's at least how I see it. That's how I believe it works for me. I'm going to share another example of that with you from the last weekend. I had this very beautiful and sweet time with my companion, and at some point some difficult feelings emerged in me. And I'm very good at suppressing my feelings, especially if it's anger and irritation, because again, the years of training me into being a good girl. So if it's some sort of like irritation, especially if it's like at myself, or just like this sort of like and then was like some fear underneath it, and I knew that I could suppress it, that I could just brush it off. But that was the pattern. That was something that I've been doing, that I was doing for all my years as a teenage, as a young adult. And I have absolutely, it's absolutely clear to me that I don't want to live like this anymore. So each time something like this emerges, it is an opportunity for me to walk in the opposite direction of the pattern. So I brought up what emerged in me. Despite the fear, despite the feeling that I would look silly, that I would look stupid, that I would look immature. So despite all the fear that I would be judged and I will lose the love and all God knows what, I walked in there and I was met with so much care and love and compassion and presence that again, some deep healing happened for me. And remember that, again, that is my personal opinion that I believe to be true, that each time we heal ourselves, so ultimately each time we learn to love ourselves a little more, each time this world becomes a better place. This is all that is needed from us. Not the success, not the achievements, not being the best, but being the truest, the deepest with your connection with yourself, loving yourself the most, especially these parts that feel unlovable. And right now, I have this big smile on my face, and I am so grateful that I did this, that I shared bits and pieces of my story with an intention and with hope that maybe it will inspire you to look deeper into your patterns. And many of them, I am sure of that, many of them were installed in you at school. And that's it for now. And please, 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 I want you to remember that you are bigger. You are bigger than any and every of your patterns. I love you dearly. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening till the very end. I'm leaving you my email contact in the description of this episode if you want to write to me and if you want to share some of your stories about what education system did to you and what are your patterns, then I would be deeply honored and deeply grateful to read them. And one more thing is that Spotify has this option of sending a voice message. So if you go to the description of this episode, at the very bottom of it, there is an option of sending a voice message. So if you want to, you can also do that. You can send me a sweet voice note and I would be happy to receive it. All my love to you. Thank you for you, and you will hear from me next week. Aloha. Bye bye.